Welcome back to Common Sense Rhode Island. I'm Representative Patricia Morgan, and today we have as our guest Michael Riley, who is a financial advisor to two separate financial services firms. One is Coastal. And the other is Beach Street.
Beach Street, that's right.
You probably know more than most of us, 99.9% of us, about the financial markets. And I know that you have been really diligent about looking at our municipal pension funds. I know a few years ago, not that long ago, a couple of years ago, the Auditor General put out a report that I think at least 12 of our municipalities' pensions were severely underfunded and in serious danger. One of those is Providence.
Yeah.
And you've been looking at Providence really hard.
Yes, I've been looking at Providence very hard since 2013. And I discovered Providence's woes. I knew that it was bad, but I discovered a few other things that really lets Providence stand apart from every other city in the nation.
And before you go into it, why is that important to state taxpayers? That's Providence, right?
Well,
that's their taxpayers.
As a result of the laws that were passed in 2010, 2011, the general obligation bondholder is entitled to first lien on taxes for a municipality. So, for example, when Central Falls went broke, the State Assembly came back twice and gave money to Central Falls to give money back to the employees to up their level of compensation to 75% of what it would have been. And then they made it actually sound like, okay, this is a precedent. You know, nobody should ever lose more than 75%. You know.
Yeah. Go ahead.
But in any case, that happened, and it happened, you know, on the last day and that sort of thing.
So that could set a precedent, so that if Providence couldn't make its payments, then the state's taxpayers would be asked to make the payments to the retirees.
Yeah, I think if Providence were to, right now, dissolve its pension fund, have a problem, and we had to try to settle it, that the true liabilities of the Providence pension plan are in the multiple billions.
Billions with a B.
Yeah, and that that is certainly not going to be handled within Providence. They don't have the resources. They're bankrupt. So it's going to fall on the state taxpayers, not on the general obligation bondholders, because they're exempted. They're first in line. So it's going to go right to the state taxpayers. So you very much could have a situation where a Coventry firefighter or a South Kingstown volunteer firefighter will be paying state taxes to make up for the retirement of Providence firemen.
Well, just regular taxpayers would be asked to pony up
all of us,
more money.
We would all be asked, and that amount is a lot of money. I think it's
billions is a lot.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that's a lot of zeros.
Yeah, yeah.
So, okay.
But that's the way the law stands right now.
So how badly underfunded? We know their underfunded liability is in the billions. So they are in the teens for funding. So
they've had to restate their funded ratio, which we talked about with the state, which is 56%. And the critical status is, again, 60%. Providence has been in the low 30s, according to their own numbers. And it was recently restated because they've been lying about their own numbers.
They had taken money out of it.
Yeah.
To further.
Well, and the Tavares reform wasn't really what it said it was, and you know, so a lot of numbers have been changed. So the official funded ratio, according to their own numbers, is 27.4%, which
really
puts it's lower than anywhere, lower than Chicago.
It's really
low.
So, you know, and one of the things that I know is if you have a small amount of money, and so say it's 27% funded,
yeah,
and you double it, you're still only 54% funded.
Yeah.
And doubling will take forever, especially if the market's not growing and you're taking money out all the time.
Assume the liabilities don't grow, which is a bad assumption. And
Yes,
assume
more
that your,
people will be
the current
retiring.
amount of assets that you're managing, right now in Providence, that's 250 million, roughly.
Sounds like a lot of money,
We'll
except,
get to that in a second, because they claim a different number. 250 million, and let's say you make 100% in the market. Now you're at 500 million. So they go from 27% funded, roughly, to 50% funded, like, as you give the example. But that's not really what takes place. The liabilities continue to grow no matter what the market does.
so more money is coming out.
Right. We currently, right now, the way we're paying out of Providence, and I say we because I actually own a piece of property in Providence, but the way the city of Providence is paying out, they're paying out $108 million a year out of their pension fund for benefits, and the workers contribute $10 million.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, that's sobering.
Yes.
That's sobering. I didn't realize the
Yeah.
difference was so large. 108
Yeah.
million is coming out and only 10 million is going in.
Right. So to employees,
So you can't sustain
108
that.
million is going to retirees and benefits, and 10 million is coming in from the new workers. The new workers. Now, the other contributee is the city, and there's two parts of its contribution. The normal contribution, which let's just say is also 10 million like the employees are.
Okay.
But it's actually a little more than that. And then the rest is what we talked about before, is that ARC, making up for what we didn't put into the pension plan, already paid for services. These people have already done their job, they're retired, you know, the whole thing, but we never put enough money into the pension plan in assets to make enough to pay for it.
So it's just going down every year. It's just losing.
It just hit a new low, 250 million. And the reason I'm saying that is that's the Providence pension assets as stated by their investment commission, which is headed by Merrill Orza. So he knows.
He knows.
And 252 million, that's what the advisor is managing. But yet
But they say there's more
on
there.
June 30th of last year, and he will again on June 30th of this year, he'll tell you that there's 320 to 350 million in assets, and it's a lie.
Okay. Let me ask you, do you know how many retirees there are?
No, I'm going to guess in the 2,000 range.
About 2,000?
Yeah, but I don't know. That's publicly available. You can get it also
Yeah.
in that report, the
Okay.
CAFR. Yeah.
So we've got real problems in Providence now.
Well,
So they're reporting more money than they actually have. The
Right.
money that they actually have, is it growing at all?
So yes, it's growing. They've actually done a better job in terms of rate of return on their investments than the state has.
Okay, that's good news.
It's good news, but they've also done it by having an outweighted bet on a single hedge fund that happened to do very well.
So risk.
So they took risk.
They took risk
Yeah.
to do it.
But they did, and they
it
got a
worked-
better,
worked
and it
out for
worked,
them.
and it got a better return. So my point about all this is
But
that.
taking on risk is not usually good for pension plans. Let's just say that, because people's lives depend on that pension fund. Not only the retirees, but the people who have to contribute to it.
Yeah.
So taking on extraordinary risk is not something that,
But it's naturally what
I mean, they're
gamblers
lucky.
do. You double down, and that mentality gets into some investment commissions. Hopefully not into some mayor's heads, but it gets into their heads. But if you're being prudent, you don't do that kind of,
No, 'cause-
to a large extent, you don't do that.
okay. So where does Providence go? What
So
do they
Providence
do?
says, as I said before, they're 27% funded, and given that funding, they have to pay $70 million a year in ARC, if that's their funded ratio. But it's not. It's not their funded ratio. First, Providence is using 8.25% as its
Ooh, so
discount
high.
rate, yeah, which is misleading about the liabilities. Second, and most important, and is a securities law violation and fraud, is that they've overstated their assets purposely. That changes the ratio. If you take the 50 million out of the assets that they're overstating, then their ratio drops into the low 20s. If you take
I gotta have to stop you because we're running out of time here in this segment. But what you're telling me is they're in trouble, bad trouble.
real bad trouble.
Okay, we'll stop there.